For years, I used to sit in my car in my office parking lot before work, feeling a quiet dread I couldn't fully explain. Nothing was wrong, at least not in the way that we usually define it. I had a respected role, a steady paycheck, and an identity that I had spent years building as an HR leader. And yet, every morning, some part of me resisted walking inside. There was nothing dramatically wrong. I had a good relationship with my boss and my coworkers. The work might have been thankless, but on some level it felt important. Yet I had this nagging feeling that this couldn't be it. It was just loud enough to notice, if I was willing to listen. At the time, I didn't have language for what I was experiencing. I just knew I felt heavy. I was tired in a way that rest didn't seem to touch, and disconnected from myself in a way that was really hard to articulate. And it was even harder to justify. I did what most of us do. I adapted. I rationalized. I told myself that it wasn't that bad. I should be grateful. The economy was shaky and other people had it worse. And in many ways, that was true. Recently, I came across a concept that finally gave language to that experience I was having. I heard it on a podcast that I love called Modern Wisdom, and it hit me really hard. It's called the Regen Beta Paradox. In simple terms, it describes our tendency to stay stuck longer in situations that are mildly uncomfortable than ones that are truly painful. When things are unbearable, change feels inevitable. There's urgency and a sense of clarity. The decision almost makes itself. But when things are just tolerable enough, when the discomfort hasn't crossed a certain threshold, we tend to stay, we adapt, we cope, we normalize what doesn't actually fit. And that's often where misalignment quietly takes root. Now, I want to clarify this term misalignment and its opposite, alignment. These words get thrown around a lot in our culture. It seems like a fancy, idealized descriptor of what's right versus wrong. But misalignment isn't about making a wrong decision, nor is it about failing to figure things out fast enough. It's about a very personal, subjective experience of living in contradiction with yourself. It's what happens when who you're becoming no longer matches how you're living or working, but you keep going anyway. Most of the time, it doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly through small compromises, through low-grade dread like I experienced. Or maybe it makes itself known through this sense of something feeling off, even if you can't quite name what that something is. And when that discomfort shows up, we tend to meet it in a couple of common ways. Sometimes we avoid what we already know. What we already know needs attention. We stay busy. We tell ourselves, now isn't the right time. We promise we'll deal with it later when things feel more clear, calm, or certain. Other times, it's a more subtle neglect. We're not fully aware yet. We just feel dull or flat, slightly disconnected. There's a signal, but it's quiet and it's easy to dismiss. Either way, signs are there. The body speaks, life nudges, and when those signals go unheeded, they tend to get louder. This was certainly true for me. For years, I lived with a persistent sense of misalignment in my professional life. I knew something wasn't right long before I was willing to say it out loud, and certainly long before I was willing to actually make a change. But I was afraid. I was afraid of losing my paycheck. I was afraid of losing my professional identity. And I was afraid of letting go of a version of myself I had spent years becoming, developing, curating even. And maybe most of all, I was afraid of the unknown. I didn't know what the next step was. And staying, even while uncomfortable, felt safer. It felt safer than stepping into complete uncertainty. So I did stay, and my body kept keeping the score. It manifested as chronic fatigue, stomach pain, and a constant low hum of unease, until eventually life intervened, as it does. It intervened in a way that I couldn't ignore. A restructuring and a major disruption to my role took place, which really forced my hand. Change was unavoidable. I just had to decide how I wanted to deal with it, how I wanted to respond to it. Did it have to get that far? Probably not. Was there some part of me subconsciously orchestrating an event big enough to force my hand? Probably. And I don't shame myself for any of it. That was part of my process. It was part of how I learned to listen more deeply to myself, and part of how my awareness finally caught up with truth. If any of this feels foreign to you in the professional context, the same pattern shows up in the body too. For those of you who work out, you know that if your form is slightly off while lifting weights, you risk injury. You might pull a muscle. It's uncomfortable, but it's manageable. But if you keep going like that, misaligned for months or even years, eventually the body demands attention through chronic pain or a severe injury, maybe even requiring surgery. The body doesn't do this to punish us. It does it to protect us and to wake us up to the misalignment. Life works the same way. I want to be very clear about something here. I don't believe we consciously create hardship for ourselves. I don't believe that we manifest our rock bottoms or deserve a massive disruption when things fall apart. Life is complex, and the systems in which we operate are also complex. And yet there is this power in claiming a kind of psychic responsibility, not as blame, but as agency, because beneath the noise, we often know. We may not control everything that happens to us, but we do have influence over how long we ignore what's asking for our attention. And all meaningful change begins internally. That's where our power lives. Rock bottom doesn't have to be the catalyst. Support matters. Honest reflection matters. And having people in your life and spaces that help you tell yourself the truth with compassion matters. When we feel resourced, the lesson doesn't need to arrive through crisis. So I want to leave you with a few questions to sit with, not as pressure, not to guilt yourself, but as an invitation to tune in to your inner wisdom. Number one, where in your life might things be not bad enough to change? Is it your work? Is it a relationship? A way of operating that once fit but no longer does? And what signals are present right now? How quietly or loudly are they asking for your attention? Awareness, when met with kindness, has a way of softening the path forward. You don't have to wait for the noise to become unbearable to choose alignment. If this resonates, I explore this theme more deeply in my writing and in my coaching work, helping people notice misalignment earlier, listen more honestly to themselves, and move forward without needing everything to fall apart first. So thank you for being here and for listening to me, but most importantly, for listening to yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my newsletter. Through personal reflections, spiritual insights, and the messy beauty of transformation, I explore what it means to live a life of depth, alignment, and devotion. From identity shifts and inner healing to creative expression and energetic leadership, Each post invites you to reconnect with the truth of who you really are and who you are becoming. The link to that is in the description below. And until next time,